So here it is, we've had over a week now to kind of digest the March update, and of course a big focus of this update was PvP and also the weapons inside of the game. In this video I do want to focus on the top primary weapons inside of the Crucible right now, but it is worth bearing in mind that this update really has tried to focus on variety in the game as opposed to there being a complete meta switch, you know? And so while I will focus on stuff that has been good since the launch of D2 and is still good right now, I do want to focus more on the variety stuff, the new weapons that are kind of rising and cementing themselves into the metagame inside of PvP. It's also worth saying that of course there will be weapons that I don't talk about in this video, so if there are any that you've really been enjoying or you think are really going off right now, then be sure to let us know in the comment section. My feedback in this video is partially based on my own experience, but also, you know, some user statistics and things that I'm hearing people talk about a lot and seeing them use inside of the game. So anyway, let's get into what I believe are the top primary weapons inside of PvP right now in 2018. This will include primary and energy weapons. When I say primary weapons, I mean archetypes that can go in those primary slots. Let's talk about the hand cannons first. The big important change to hand cannons, especially for console or controller users, was the increase to accuracy that we saw. So generally hand cannons feel a little bit stickier right now. They're more consistently landing their shots. And I want to talk about the lightweight hand cannons just a little bit. Now a great example right here would be the Dire Promise. Of course, these are 150 RPM hand cannons. Dire Promise of course comes with steady rounds. We've also got appended mag and triple tap, so it's got some decent bonuses. But in particular, Dire Promise has a lot of stability, which isn't a bad thing on the faster firing hand cannons. You've also got excellent handling and aim assist on the Dire Promise. So statistically and in terms of the perks, it's just generally a very solid hand cannon, and it's one of the more consistent hand cannons in the game right now inside of the Crucible. Then you have, of course, the Midnight Coup, also in the lightweight frame archetype. The Dire Promise does beat it out generally on stats, but of course, combined with those accuracy changes, Midnight Coup also has Rampage, so getting bonus damage when you make a kill is always a good thing. You've also got Outlaw on the weapon. Those are the kind of two trait bonuses that most players are going to enjoy inside of PvP. So while it's not quite on par with Dire Promise in terms of stats, its bonuses are excellent. It's a fantastic hand cannon. The other key archetype I think is really important right now would be the adaptive frame hand cannons. In particular, I would focus on the old-fashioned. Of course, these are 140 RPM, so they hit a little bit harder. Generally, they're going to have more range capability than what you'd see on the lightweight hand cannons. But the old-fashioned in particular, you know, it comes with accurized rounds, so you can bump up the range. It also has kill clip, another bonus which was buffed in the March 27th update. And of course, reloading after a kill grants increased damage, so it's really going to help you deal with multiple targets. You can make that kill, get into cover, get the reload. It'll help you in that next engagement. Kill clip is absolutely one of the most popular perks in the game, and combined with the changes we've seen, that is why old-fashioned right now is one of the best PvP hand cannons for the game, hands down. There is also Better Devils in the same archetype as the old-fashioned. Better Devils hasn't gone anywhere, it's still a very solid hand cannon. Previously, Better Devils was probably the top pick generally in the adaptive archetype, but with those accuracy changes, we are seeing other things start to shine. So I think the four hand cannons I've just mentioned are certainly on top in terms of hand cannons. There are, of course, the higher impact hand cannons. You've got Criminal's Dagger and the Steady Hand. They are very consistent, but I think usability-wise right now, they're just not up there with those other archetypes. Let's talk about pulse rifles though. So pulse rifles have seen a lot of change, and generally the pulse rifle class is the archetype of weapon which has risen the most since the March 27th update. There is of course more than one reason for that, but we do have rapid fire frame pulse rifles. So Time Worn Spire from the Iron Banner is absolutely one of the best examples of this. It's personally my favorite legendary pulse rifle in this archetype. It has very good aim assist, very good stability and handling. It pretty much beats out everything else in the class, and it has Zen Moment, which is of course going to help you land those shots as you continuously fire. It's good in engagements against multiple targets as well. But I would also say that on par with that would be Darkest Before. This is a weapon that, you know, has brought quite a lot of excitement because it's a very consistent pulse rifle. The rapid fire frame archetype in general has been the best that we've seen inside of PvP up until now, and it's only really gotten better inside of the March 27th update. So Time Worn Spire and Darkest Before in particular would be my top picks there. The other archetype I really want to mention would be the adaptive pulse rifles. Now in particular, Inaugural Address is a fantastic pulse rifle in this archetype. It has very good handling, think it feels generally more reliable than most other adaptive frame pulse rifles in my experience, but also it comes with kill clip and outlaw. So again, you make that first kill and then get the reload, and obviously the consistency of the weapon is only going to improve in that next engagement. I really think the combination of stats and the base performance combined with those perks makes Inaugural Address the most impressive adaptive frame pulse rifle that I think we've got. But then of course there is the big bad boy. We've got the Vigilant Wing. So this without a doubt has been the most highly used pulse rifle ever in Destiny 2 probably at this point, but inside of the March 27th update, as we all know, it saw a very significant buff. So it actually got the high impact frame buff, that's an increase in rate of fire and damage, and of course this is a 5-round burst pulse rifle, so each burst puts out a significant amount of damage, and so with this change, you're gonna see potential 2 bursts with this weapon. It's capable of putting out enough damage to do that. Generally, you're gonna end up 3 bursting players because you're not always gonna hit enough precision hits to actually make that 2 burst, especially on the consoles. However, it's that damage that is most important. Even if you're hitting body shots, you're capable of putting out a ridiculous amount of damage. Obviously, if you hit the head, things only get better, but also Vigilance Wing has very good range capability, generally speaking. It's one of the most consistent long-range pulse rifles that you'll find in the game, and Vigilance Wing has basically risen to the #1 primary weapon in the game. So those would be my top picks for pulse rifles. We do also have, lightweight frame, I think it is, Nightshade and things like that. It just doesn't feel like the change there is quite as substantial as what we've seen in other archetypes in terms of making them more reliable, but there absolutely are other pulse rifle options, so let me know yours down below. So let's talk about sidearms a little bit. The kind of new kid on the block in terms of sidearms would be the Rattler. Generally the burst sidearms have been the most popular inside of D2, but with some of these changes, the general buffs to sidearms and the fact that the Rattler actually has kill clip, which again has been buffed, makes this a really solid weapon to use if you've got multiple targets. Again, kill clip does a ton of work. You also have some of the most solid stats on the Rattler in particular, so I think it's a really fun sidearm to use inside of PvP right now. But then of course there are the other burst sidearms that I mentioned before. These have been relatively prevalent in the game up until now anyway, but we've got Last Hope. It's still got excellent stats, they still have a great time to kill. I'd also say Traveler's Judgment is very, very solid. Of course, this one comes with Headseeker, which is pretty unique. So not an awful lot has changed when it comes to sidearms. There are just some more interesting options there, and I think the Rattler is a great example of that. Let's talk about SMGs a little bit though. Again, not a ton of real changes in the game to the SMGs, but if we look at some of the energy ones, so Hero's Burden, which is the Iron Banner SMG, this is pretty much the best 900 RPM SMG that you could use in PvP. It has excellent range, you've got slightly lower stability and handling by a small amount versus something like Foggy Notion, but high caliber rounds on the Hero's Burden as well as Threat Detector really kind of compensate, and they're always working for you as well. Threat Detector in particular, considering you're going to be close to targets, is just going to enable you to keep getting into more gunfights. It generally will mean you could spend more time firing the weapon as opposed to reloading or readying the weapon. The Foggy Notion would be another mention here. I actually think it's a really fun SMG to use. It's got very good handling. Generally it has solid stats for, a Soros SMG of this style, but also it comes with ricochet rounds, so it's increasing stability and slightly increasing range. As well as this, you have Grave Robber. So generally if you're using something like Sentinel, something that's got quite a few melee benefits, should we say, then having Grave Robber there to reload a portion of the magazine, also a bonus that received a small buff in the March 27th update. It's definitely a great thing to enable you to kind of keep mowing through targets. The other kind of key archetype in PvP though would be the Antiope D style of SMG. Antiope in particular remains to be the king of range and damage in this archetype, and again, because you have kill clip there, which has only gotten better in this update, it's still a very present weapon despite some of the small scope changes that you actually see on the weapon. I believe it has a little bit less zoom now, so it is knocking off a little bit of its range capability, but like I said, it's still very present. It's still very, very efficient. And so to me, the stuff that we've spoken about, the SMGs, the sidearms, the pulse rifles, and the hand cannons, that's where I feel there has been more interesting change in the game. Now we can talk about auto rifles and scout rifles a little bit, and I'm going to be honest, I'm going to paint them with a bit of a broad brush in terms of reviewing them right here, because not that much has changed. The weapons on the most part feel kind of the same to use, and they're also pretty much as effective as they were previously. To that end, when we look at weapon stats for trials and things like that, we're still still seeing auto rifles right up there. So Uriel's Gift, the 450 RPM class of auto rifle, this has been the dominant primary weapon type generally since Destiny 2 launched. We did see a pretty minor drop in range and accuracy for these auto rifles, so at longer ranges you can feel that they are slightly less effective than they were previously. However, the time to kill is still there, nothing's really changed, they still have generous range in my opinion. So Uriel's Gift, positive outlook, origin story, even the Oromund's Anvil from the Iron Banner, they're consistent and they're probably, frankly, the easiest to use primary type of weapon. They have that ease of use and that's part of the reason that they're still very prevalent in the game. When it comes to the scout rifles, Mida Multitool, the Purpose from Trials, even the Nameless Midnight Archetype, they're all kind of still on top when it comes to scouts. We have seen the usage of scout rifles actually drop a little bit since the March 27th update, and in part that will be because generally people want to try other things. You also have pulse rifles, which are a little bit more competitive in that space, but honestly, otherwise, nothing has really changed. Precision scout weapons that outclass everything, at the right ranges. Mida still has lightweight and the radar benefits. The only thing really influencing the use of scout rifles right now is the fact that people want to use other types of weapons, and there are more weapons that are as appealing to use now. So those would be my impressions of the Crucible right now, but also in particular my list of the top weapons that you should be looking out to use inside of PvP. As I mentioned though, I'm a fan of variety, so I definitely don't vote that, we all kind of gravitate to the exact same thing. Part of the joy of Destiny PvP for me personally has always been pulling out different types of weapons and experiencing what they can do, and also challenging myself to, try and make good plays against stuff that is frankly better than what I'm using. And I think a lot of other people do that as well. So anyway, let me know your top weapons, guys. Let me know if you've used any of the ones on this list, or if you have any which you think are secretly, capable of kicking this meta's ass and they're kind of off the radar right now. If you have enjoyed the video though, a like is very much appreciated. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit subscribe if you want to see more D2 content. For now though, I appreciate you watching and I'll catch you guys very soon.